Welcome to Ham Radio Adventures number 4, June 25, 2022. Tower preparation, Yagi assembly, maintenance, and tower up. I'm WB2AHH, Mark. All right, let me give you a little tour of the tower at this point. Obviously, in the last video, we got the tower down, and I'll do a walk of it and show you what's going on. There's a copper 4 AWG wire right there that'll go to the base of the tower and tie in with the rest of the grounds. That way, a little lightning protection if the tower gets hit. There'll be all new bolts at the bottom. I've already replaced all the bolts on the rest of the tower, but I'll replace the bolts right before I lift it up. You'll also notice as you look up the tower, those little black square things. What I've done is, maybe it's overkill, but I got myself, I'm going to feed the coax from the antennas down through these, which are secured to the tower. I figure maybe that's the best way to keep them stable. I don't want to tape them on or tie wrap them on, but that should lock them in. As we come up to about the 15-foot level of the tower, that's one of my security cameras. That'll obviously go back up. And I've also, any rust that I've seen on the tower, I've wire brushed it and I've sprayed it with galvanized paint, and it came out pretty good. The color matched pretty good, and I guess when it's up in the air you won't really see it that much anyway. So the tower is still resting on its little horse there, and we come up here and I've added a rotor plate. And this rotor plate is about 10 feet down from the base of the tower in section 2. The rotor up there is a Yaesu 800 DXA, and mounted very well. I've already centered the pole, the mast I should say, and we come up to the top of the tower, and that is the Yaesu 065 thrust bearing, and that's obviously where we'll have the pole come out. I'll do how I put the pole together and how I put the antennas together in the next video. But right now I just wanted to show you the tower down on the ground. And it doesn't look that long on the ground, but it is about 64 feet, 65 feet. And it's a ROHN BX64. It's been up for 14 years. And didn't need much maintenance, but I put all new bolts on it anyway. If you get into some of these bolts here, you can see that they're brand new and shiny. I took every one out one at a time, and I replaced them all the way down the tower. All right, let's move on. Now, while the tower was down, I inspected it thoroughly, and the worst rust, there wasn't much rust on it. It's been up for 14 years. The worst rust was on the top plate, and it was just surface rust. So I wire brushed it, cleaned it up, and then I sprayed it with the galvanized paint, and I put 3 coats on it. And so far it looks pretty good. It's held up very well. But that was the worst part of the tower. The rest of it was in pretty good shape. For the mast that I was going to use, I purchased an aluminum Schedule 40 mast, which is 18 feet long. Now, when I got it, I wanted to get an Schedule 80 pipe, but I couldn't find one in the area and they were too expensive to ship in. I thought of a Molly pipe, but they were $700 plus like about $200 shipping, so I opted for this. In order to strengthen it a little bit, I took a 9-foot section of a 1 1/4 inch inside, well, let's see, I don't know if it's inside or outside diameter, but what I did was I cut it in half. It's 9 feet long, and from a foot below the thrust bearing to 8 feet above the thrust bearing, it was inserted in the pole, and then 1 bolt was put in to hold it, and that stiffened this pipe quite a bit. Since it's aluminum, I didn't want it in heavy wind whipping back and forth too much. And this seemed to do the trick, and we'll find out. I mean, the tower's up now, so we'll see how it lasts in the long run, but it was a pretty good thing. Also, I couldn't find anything to easily cut the aluminum until I researched a little bit, and I just wanted to let you know, here's a picture of the blade I got for my handsaw. It was Harbor Freight. It was $21, and it's the best blade I've ever used. It went through that aluminum like a hot knife through butter. I cut it in half, sized it, and then put it together and slid it inside the top end of the pipe of the mast. And finally, after 3 months, my Mosley antennas arrived. That's the 70 centimeter on the left, the short box. And they arrived packaged very well. I must admit, Mosley packaged them so they'd never get hurt. Time to put them together. I'd already put together the 70 centimeter, 6 meter, and 2 meter antennas. This is me working on the HF, the Mosley TA32M like Mary. It's 26-foot long elements on on each side, basically. And I put them on a couple of carpenter horses, and I worked on them slowly and carefully. If you follow their directions, they're a little rough, and I kind of told Mosley that the directions were a little lacking as far as I was concerned. However, everything went together smoothly, color-coded, spacing, everything is matched, and I slowly put the elements together. And I had to rock them side to side to get to the screws, which are underneath when you put the extended elements in and the traps. It was actually quite a feat, but I got it done. Now it's time to walk the antenna over to the test area. You'll see that in just a minute here, what I set up. But it was a little awkward carrying the antenna. It's rather large, and it's kind of like balanced funny when you walk with it. But everything worked out all right, and I got it to the test center. Now, what I used for the test center was I had a 12-foot steel 2-inch diameter pole, and I buried it in the ground about 3 feet. Set it up vertical, and then I put all the antennas on it roughly in the spacing I was going to put them on the tower. And then I tested each one, and I was using a meter that was loaned to me by a friend, Bobby, and it was a Rig Expert AA650 Zoom, and that thing really helped me set everything up. Now, I know that on these poles, and especially with the HF close to the ground, the SWR was a little bit higher than it would be once it's on the tower. And I took that chance, and as you'll see later, it did work out well. But it was fun putting them on the pole, testing each one. It took me about 4 days to get everything right, everything level, and everything the way I wanted. Now here's a shot with the 70 centimeter already mounted on the top of the tower while it's down. I used those 2x4s as support for the end of the pole. It really didn't need it. It didn't droop very much, but I figured I'd keep it straight while I was putting everything on it. That worked out very well, and the antennas went up pretty straight. After all the testing, and I got the 70 centimeter mounted, I then walked over the 6 meter and 2 meter combo antenna. That's a Mosley 2N like Nora 6, 2 and 6. And it's a very nice antenna, works very well. It took me a little while to tune that one up, but I got it. And I'm walking it over to mount it on the pole. Now I should note here that I ran the coax as I put each antenna up, hooked that up, but didn't waterproof it until everything was tested. As you can see now, the 70 centimeter, the 2 and 6 are on there. And in a second, you'll see a shot of the HF antenna, which worked out very nicely. All 3 antennas are mounted. There you go. All the coaxes run. Now, to try to waterproof and test. Now, I'm going to leave this chart up here for a few seconds and explain 3 things. First of all, 4 things. But this chart is a formula I found online to get the lifting weight of the tower. Based on all the weights I had, the cable weight and everything else, once I hooked it up to my truck and began to pull it up, and that was from another video, Ham Radio Adventures 2 or 3, this told me the force I need to get the tower off the horse that it was on. And I figured it was about between 1,200 and 1,250 pounds of pull. My cables were strong enough. I was hoping the antennas would be okay, and it did work out all right. That's number one. While this is up here, I'll also explain I did not use the coax blocks that I showed in another video. I ended up taping the coax together and taping it to the tower cross pieces. That seemed to work out better, and I think less wind resistance. I also forgot, because I was alone at the time, to turn on the recorder of the tower going up. So the best I could do is the video you're about to see, where I used my truck to pull the tower up, which has a security camera, and you can see the tower going up. I'll explain that as the video plays. Now, last thing is, because I was alone and in the truck, there's a point where I get out of the truck and turn the rotor to swing the antennas to miss a branch. I swung it enough, but it just tipped the branch enough to offset the 2 and 6 meter antenna. So when you look up the tower, you'll notice that the middle antenna, the 2 and 6, is a couple of degrees off of north. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up having a barbecue in the fall with a bunch of my ham friends. We're going to lower the tower, straighten that out, put it back up, and then have a cookout. And that one I promise I'll video. Here we are now. I have the 3/8 inch steel cable hooked up to the front of the truck. And as you can see also, I must make a comment, that ceramic pro coating on that truck really looks good. But you can see me pulling back, and I can feel the weight of the tower on the initial pull. The initial pull, I guess, to be about 1,200 pounds, and I think I was right on that. But now you'll see with the garage in the background off the security camera, the tower starts to come up. And what I do is I keep pulling the tower until I get it up just before the branch that's a little bit in the way. And then you'll see a video of me getting out and moving the rotor a little bit to move the antenna out of the way. You can see the tower coming up faster now. The vehicle is in four-wheel low, so I could control the movement of the vehicle easily. So I stop the pull just before the branch, and I go inside and I get the rotor, and the rotor control, I should say. I take the rotor control, take a quick look, and again, I'm working alone, and I rotate the rotor to what I think is out of the way of the branch. However, I didn't see the second branch that was in the way, so I move the rotor. Everything looks pretty good. I get back in the truck, and I start a pull again, and the tower goes up, and you'll see from the security camera video on the tower, when the tower gets to the top, there'll be a little shaking where it goes over 90, just at 90 degrees, and the tower weighs practically nothing, and then falls back on the, I have a block under that mount to make sure I didn't go too far. And the tower came down perfectly where I wanted it. I got a bolt in really, really quick. Here's a couple shots of the tower once it's up. I got all the bolts in and torqued up. As you can see from the previous picture, the bolts are nice and shiny and brand new. That tower came up in exactly the same spot I took it down from. It was perfectly level on all three legs. I was very happy with that. Here's a tighter shot of the top of the tower, and you can see the middle antenna, which is the 2 and 6 meter. It's undamaged, but it did rotate about 2 degrees out from the other two antennas, the 70 centimeter on the top and the HF on the bottom. Here's a shot of the unfinished control panel, the entry panel into the garage where the equipment is. When I say unfinished, what I mean is the rotor cable still has to go on top of the, it has to be attached to the surge protector that I built, the homemade surge protector in the upper right-hand corner. And here's a quick shot of how I put up the coax. All the coax is bundled, it's wrapped in tape, and it's also zip tied to the main structure. And the zip ties are on loose enough so if there's any expansion and contraction, it'll hold up pretty well. I just thought this was neater than the coax tubes that I bought that I decided not to use. Here's a couple shots of the tower from a different angle. It went up really nicely. I shouldn't have done it alone, but I did. And pretty soon you'll see a video here from the base of the tower all the way up. That's the cabling. And when we hit about 18 feet, you'll see the security camera that's up there that at least caught some of the raising of the tower, even though it was mostly a reflection of my car. And here's the utility box. The utility box goes underground and 3-inch conduit comes over to the tower and comes out of the 3-inch conduit, and I'm going to weatherproof that. And here's another video of the tower and the crooked antenna that I can't stand, but we'll fix it. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it.